Hi there. So I've been having a hard time reading long form for a little while now. What my attention seems to want to do is I'll start reading and then my brain will be thinking all of a sudden of something else. And next thing I know, I have turned a page, but I know nothing of what has been going on in the book. I don't know. So I was physically probably reading. I was probably reading words, but as I was reading words, I was thinking something completely different. So comprehension wise, I wouldn't have been at all reading that book. So I challenged myself right before Halloween to read 3 books. That goal would have been definitely doable. And I had books that were in short story style. I had a book that was just a novella. And then I had an audiobook. So I figured that I was kind of setting myself up for success because they were in the different formats. In the end, I read 2 out of the 3. So 2 out of the 3 ain't bad. I have to give myself props for that I managed to do that. I will be taking part in the Read What You Own challenge, which is something that I think Criminali does. I think every year he does 100 books. I don't know if I'd set myself up with the same terms or the same goal amount of books that he does, but I like the idea of challenging myself to read what I have on my Kindle or in a physical copy. So stay tuned. I'm going to see what books that might entail and how many books and what the rules would be for me. I know that recently I have joined a book club, so I'm pretty sure that book club would be one of the rules. Like, there's no way around it. I would get a new book to read and think about and digest every month. I don't think that would count towards my goal. I think that would just be separate, but we'll see. The first book that I want to talk about that I actually did get through was Hide by Kiersten White. Now, this was an audiobook that I listened to. The book was fine. It was okay. I'm not mad at the book. The book read like a young adult type novel, and although I don't have a problem with that genre, I don't have a problem with books written in that way, it was really advertised as more an adult book. And therefore, when I was reading it, because it had a really interesting premise, I was thinking that I would get more detail and gruesomeness out of the book. I thought that I would get more just grittiness. I felt that the book glazed over a lot of that. And I don't want to say really, but I was bummed out about that, especially since the premise was so interesting. So what this book is about is it's about a bunch of contestants going to an old abandoned amusement park for some kind of a game of hide and seek, and the winner would win whatever prize. And so I thought that was interesting. The contestants for this game, there's a sinister reason that they were all chosen, and they weren't as random as originally we thought at the beginning. So I had high hopes for this book. There was the premise as well as the gorgeous color scheme and look of the cover. I mean, look at it. Look at it. Look at it. Gorgeous. And I was just all on board. The book really didn't seem to commit, and I was talking about this before, it didn't really seem to get as dirty and disgusting, and it didn't really go into a lot of themes that I was hoping that it was going to go into. Like, the contestants aren't random, so, you know, go deeper into the cruelty of choosing these contestants and the why you choose these contestants. I mean, they do go into that. It's not like that's a confusing point to the book, but they don't necessarily go into like the darkness of that as much as I would hope. And because of that, the book was kind of forgettable. I'm pretty sure in a couple months, I'm not going to remember much of this book. In fact, now I don't remember a lot of the book. So that's kind of a bummer because I don't know about you, but me, I like reading books that kind of punch me in the gut, that kind of make me go, oh, I remember that. And then I can say, oh, I want to read that again. No, I don't want to read that. Or maybe I recommend that. But I like books that impact me. To be honest, I was very confused about the characters. There's a set of characters that have the same name. So that automatically, when you're just learning who different characters are, that is confusing. But also, because there was only one narrator, only one person for the audiobook at least, it was difficult for me to point out who was doing what and what was going on. I mean, fair. When it comes to books like this, and it's a horror book, you know that there's certain characters that are just going to be fodder, and you just don't have to really invest in those characters. That's totally fair. I am not thinking that every single character I'm going to be invested in and I'm going to remember. But it's nice when you have characters that are differentiated enough that you actually care about their story. You actually, you can say, these are the different people and this is their why behind what they're doing and what they're thinking. So I know I found that confusing. I don't know if I missed things along the way that would have made a bigger impact. I don't know if taking it from an audiobook situation to a read-along situation would have been better, as I would have picked up more. So I don't know if that was me, but that was my take. And then, but yeah, I didn't feel that there were major pacing issues or issues with it being a really long, drawn out story, because that can happen. You could have an author that just is very self-indulgent and puts more words than is needed on the page. I didn't feel that this was that, but also I kind of feel that this book would have benefited with more words. I feel like there could be more descriptions. I feel like they're in an old abandoned amusement park. There could be more detail about that. I feel that the setting wasn't utilized, wasn't brought into the suspense and gloom of the whole thing. I'm not sure if I would recommend this book. I mean, it was fine for me. It was, enjoyable for what it was. So I'm not sure if I would recommend it, but I think that there are other books that seem to have the same stakes or higher stakes for the characters that did a much better job than this book. Although not necessarily in that setting, which is kind of a bummer because when I read the setting, I got more excited that, sure, I've read this scenario before. Not necessarily hide and seek, not necessarily in an amusement park, but definitely horror books where people join a competition thinking one thing, but really there's another thing going on behind the scenes. Definitely I've read that before. Yeah, the fact that it wasn't that great is kind of a bummer, for sure. And I wouldn't be reading this book again. The other book that I managed to read is The Boy Who Kicked Pigs. And I love this book. I really do. It does something in my weird little brain where I just find it super cozy, super lovely. Most of the book is illustrations. On one page you'll have illustration and it's the same each page. I find the illustrations give me a giggle. I find that the whole thing is very enjoyable. I wouldn't recommend this to kids, but I will leave that to you because you know your kid and you know what they can handle and what they can't. So I'll just say that I wouldn't have suggested it to kids. But there isn't swearing in it. There's a lot of violence and there's a lot of angst, but there's also a sense of justice within the book. So I don't know. I'll leave that to you. This is a very short book. It talks about a boy named Robert and how he loathes the human race. And because he has such disdain about people and the people of the world and how he views people, you see him kind of double down on how he feels about people and planning horrible things for the human race. So that's kind of the premise there. Originally, when I first read it, and actually last time I read it, I had the same opinion, that it was more lighthearted. For whatever reason, I thought of him as more of a trickster. Now I'm seeing him as more kind of deep, kind of not liking people and having a really dark motivation. So I like that. I like that as I grow and as I keep reading this book at different parts of my life, that I'm getting more perspective on this book. I definitely do recommend this book. I do definitely recommend it if a person has darker, silly, and sick humor like myself. I recommend that. It's not a serious book by any means, so don't go in thinking that it's going to be super scary or anything like that, because it's not. It's really just a slice of his life. I mean, it's not a whodunit. There's no big arc that happens or whatever, but I do think it's a good time. So there you have it. That is all the books that I read before Halloween. Let me know down in the comments if you managed to read anything for this Halloween and if there's anything that you would recommend. There are so many books out there that it's incredible to me how many there are and how many I actually will never read. So it's interesting to me to hear about what other people are reading and recommendations that they may have. Like I said, I'm going to go through my library and not the library, my personal library, and figure out what books I have that I would like to read and be done with. Then I can kind of see how many books I have, how many books I think I'd be able to read, because I don't want to do a read what you own challenge and set myself a goal so high that I won't achieve my goal. You know, knowing myself, I don't want to set myself up for failure. So I do want to figure that out. Stay tuned because I will talk more about that. And hopefully you'll be doing a challenge with me, and we can see how each other is doing and keep each other accountable to that. Anyway, so until then, take care and be good to yourself.